We want to get to this really disturbing story out of Memphis. The family of 29-year-old Tyre Nichols says the Memphis officers involved in his traffic stop should be charged for his death. Officers claim Nichols was pulled over by police on January 7th for reckless driving and that he ran from law enforcement. They say that led to a, quote, confrontation. When officers tried to detain him, police have not released a detailed accounting of the stop or body camera footage. Nichols complained of shortness of breath and, according to police, was taken to a hospital in critical condition. He died 3 days later. The Nichols family's attorneys say an initial autopsy report shows that he was severely beaten before his death. The Shelby County Medical Examiner's Office has not released an official cause of death yet. His family has hired a forensic pathologist to look into the case. The 5 officers involved in the stop were all fired from the Memphis Police Department after an investigation found they violated multiple policies, including excessive force and duty to render aid. NBC News' attempt to reach the officers were unsuccessful. 2 Memphis Fire Department personnel that were, quote, involved in the initial patient care of Tyre Nichols have also been relieved of duty. And I wonder if and when the body camera footage is going to be released, because given the fact that the officers were fired, there is something that clearly went incredibly wrong here.
These police officers brutalized him. And I loved your statement that you put out yesterday. It was so important. Nobody else seemed to be talking about it until you started talking about it. But this guy was just beaten to death, literally beaten to death. This has echoes of Rodney King, simply for, as you said, driving while black. And yet the 5 officers were all black. And you talk about that, too.
I think it is egregious is probably too light a word to see what happened to Tyre. I talked to his parents along with Attorney Ben Crump day before yesterday. And I said the thing that outrages me, and I was involved over 30 years ago with the Rodney King case, is that first of all, what was it that they were pursuing him about? A traffic stop? And they beat him like this? And then the fact that all 5 policemen, all 5, were black. And if we don't, and we being those in the civil rights community, cannot stand up and hold black cops to the same accountability and show the same outrage, then if they were white, then we are fighting white police brutality, not fighting police brutality. I've said to the family that I'm going to weigh in as heavily as I can with National Action Network. I've been invited to speak at the funeral at Mississippi Boulevard Baptist Church next Wednesday, because this is an outrage. And race still is involved, Joe, as you and I spoke about on the phone, because I don't believe those 5 cops would have done that to a young white on a traffic stop. So when blacks engage in profiling, when whites engage in profiling, they need to not only be fired, they need to be prosecuted. There is no way that I can see how they justify this. It needs to go in front of a court of law. And I think the fact that they were fired before an investigation was completed means that the city knows that there's criminal behavior here.
So let me ask, because again, if the 5 officers were black, race is still involved because the person who was beaten to death was black. What's your best explanation from talking to the family, talking to others, on why these 5 police officers beat their child to death?
They're really, they're grappling for explanations in the conversation I have with them on the phone. And there really is no explanation other than police feeling they have the right to do whatever they want to do. And they get in these games of playing with people like they're just some kind of objects to take out some kind of violent misbehavior. It's almost masochistic. But whatever it is, I think they must face the law. They should be prosecuted. It cannot stop. The activists in Memphis need to be supported by those of us nationally, because they're right. It can't stop with just being fired. And when we look at the fact that we fought hard to get blacks on the police force in Memphis, and for them to behave like this, we should double down on this case.
So in talking to the family and talking to Ben Crump, do you have any information on the circumstances of the stop?
I don't have any information on the circumstances of the stop, but there are no circumstances that could justify beating a man to death.
True. But I mean, the thing starts with the circumstances.
It starts with the circumstances, but for say he cursed at one, say whatever you want. 5 of them to brutally engage this, put them in a car ride. I mean, it is unthinkable and unbelievable.
No weapon?
No weapon. I'm sure that if there had been a weapon, they wouldn't have fired the policeman. You have to remember, the firing of the policeman establishes that even their superiors don't see why this was in any way remotely justifiable. And they didn't even wait for the investigation to be over, which is why we're weighing in as heavily as we can to support these cases.
And Rev, they thought they could get away with this. They thought they could get away with this because he was a black man. They thought they could do whatever they wanted to do because he was a black man and nobody was going to care.
And they thought the black community, which has in Memphis has in many ways been mobilized around this, they thought that they wouldn't say anything because they're black. You can't hide behind your blackness anymore. You should be able to hide behind your whiteness to get away with what appears to be a murder unprovoked. You can't hide, and it is a mockery to the movement to think that we are that cheap and that we will not stand up against wrong, even if you have black skin.